They don't tell you this part. Not right away, my friends. When you hear stories of heroes, it's always about their strength, their journey, their triumph. The monsters they slay, the worlds they save, the glory they win. But here's the truth. The hero always dies. Not always in body, no, but in some way. Who they were at the beginning has to end. Because if they don't change, they don't grow. And if they don't grow, they fail. Real change demands a cost. Real transformation, it asks for blood. Let me tell you 3 stories, not of how the hero won, but how they died, and what came after. We'll begin in ancient Greece with the strongest man to ever walk the earth, and how his story didn't end with a victory, but with fire. Heracles, called Hercules by the Romans, was no ordinary man. He belonged to the Greek world of gods and monsters, born of Zeus and a mortal woman. He was raised in a world where the divine walked alongside men and sometimes crushed them. He was a hero from the start. He strangled serpents in his cradle. He broke a lion's jaw with his bare hands. He carried the weight of the heavens on his shoulders. 12 labors, 12 victories against the beasts, tyrants, and even death itself. And yet, for all his strength, he could not escape suffering. After his labors, Heracles sought peace. He married Deianira, a woman he loved. But love, as you know, is not always safe. One day, as they crossed the river, a centaur named Nessus offered to carry Deianira to the other side. Halfway across, Nessus tried to steal her. Heracles, furious, shot him with a poisoned arrow. As Nessus lay dying, he whispered to Deianira, "Take my blood. It will keep Heracles faithful, a love charm, just in case." And so she kept it, just in case. Years passed, doubts crept in, fears. And one day, Deianira sent Heracles a robe, drenched in the centaur's blood. She meant to protect the marriage. But what she gave him was poison. When Heracles put on the robe, it clung to his skin. The poison seeped into him, burned through his flesh, fused into his body. No strength could tear it off. No water could cool the pain. In agony, Heracles climbed Mount Oeta. He gathered wood, built a pyre, and lay upon it. He called for fire, not as a warrior, but as a man in unbearable pain. And when the flames rose, they did not consume him. They released him. His mortal shell turned to ash. But from the smoke rose something greater, his divinity. The Greek gods welcomed him to Olympus. No longer man, no longer suffering. Now, a god, but only through death could he ascend. It's a strange thing, isn't it, my friends? He completed every task. He earned rest. But the story didn't end in peace. It ended in fire. Because transformation, true transformation, doesn't just take effort. It takes sacrifice. For Heracles, it was his body, the source of his strength, the very thing that made him legendary. And that had to go. Because the thing that gets you through the trials is not always the thing that carries you into the next life. But not all deaths are so visible. Some happen in silence, in solitude. Now let's leave Greece behind and travel north, to the lands of ice and shadow, where a god once hanged himself from a tree, to learn what no one else could. This is a tale from Norse mythology, from the cold realms of Scandinavia, where gods were warriors, and the end of the world had already been foretold. Odin, the Allfather, the one-eyed wanderer, king of the Norse gods, feared in battle, wise in counsel. But Odin was never satisfied. He didn't seek riches or worship. He sought knowledge, the secrets beneath the surface of the world, the hidden runes, the very language of creation. But those truths were buried deep, beyond the flesh, beyond thought. And so Odin made the ultimate offering. He approached Yggdrasil, the great world tree whose roots stretched into every realm, and he hung himself from its branches. 9 nights, 9 days, no food, no water, a spear through his side, no comfort, no audience, only darkness. He dangled there, between life and death, thought and silence, and then the runes revealed themselves, not as simple symbols, but as deep truths, living knowledge that etched itself into his bones. When he fell from the tree, he was changed. Wiser, sharper, a stranger, the same god in form, but not in soul. To gain that wisdom, Odin had to die. Not in body, but in certainty. He had to give up being Odin as he was, to become what he was meant to be. Let me ask you this, my friends. What are you willing to suffer for what you seek? Not fight for, not achieve, suffer for. Because Odin didn't win the runes. He didn't earn them with strength. He gave something up, his image, his comfort, his place in the world. That's the part we skip in modern stories. The hanging, the waiting, the not knowing. That moment where you are not who you were. But you're not yet who you'll be. You just dangle there, between identities, in the dark. But even gods have to pass through the shadow. Even gods have to die. And now, my friends, we turn east, to the ancient islands of Japan, where a man once descended into the underworld and barely made it back. In the beginning of all things, in the mythology of Shinto Japan, there were two creator gods, Izanagi and Izanami. Together, they shaped the islands of Japan. Its mountains, its rivers, its skies. They danced in joy, they bound themselves in love, and in their union, they created fire. But fire, as ever, comes with a price. Izanami, the goddess of life, died giving birth to it. Izanagi was shattered. He could not accept her death, so he went after her, into Yomi, the land of shadows and silence. He wandered the dark, calling her name. And at last, she answered. But she had changed. Bound to the underworld, she was no longer the radiant goddess, he remembered. She warned him, "Do not look upon me. Wait, and I will speak with the gods." But Izanagi, overcome with longing, disobeyed. He lit a torch, and there she was, rotting, silent, staring, a corpse bound by laws even love could not break. He fled, and she chased him, furious, ashamed, betrayed. He reached the surface and sealed the entrance with a great stone, but he did not leave unchanged. He was stained by death, marked by what he had seen. So he washed, he bathed in a sacred river. He scrubbed the underworld from his skin, and from that ritual, new gods were born, the sun, the moon, the storm. His descent had not been in vain, but to bring light back into the world, he had to go through darkness, he had to lose her, he had to look and run and cleanse her. There's something different about this story, my friends. Something quieter, sadder, but also grander. Because Izanagi didn't descend to gain power. He wasn't seeking glory or wisdom. He just wanted her back, and he failed. But in that failure, something larger unfolded. The sun, the moon, the storm. Cosmic forces were born from his grief. Sometimes the sacrifice isn't for you. Sometimes it's not even for the one you love. Sometimes it's for the world. We don't always get to keep what we go into the darkness for, but we don't leave empty-handed either. There are losses that shape creation, wounds that bring light, and endings that birth everything that follows. Heracles burned, Odin hanged, Izanagi descended, each of them suffered, each of them broke, and each of them was changed. Because the hero's journey, my friends, is not just about strength. It's about surrender, the willingness to be undone, to give up the old self, burn it, hang it, bury it, and see what rises in its place. And it hurts, gods, it hurts. But the stories say that's how the sun was born. That's how divinity was reached. That's how wisdom was earned. So tell me, what part of you has to die for the rest of you to live? Something to think about. Now, who's got another log for the fire?